Hello, neighbor. I'm Robert Burns, and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And I think that my guest would need no introduction by now, but nevertheless, this is Ascension Parish Sheriff Candidate C.J. Matthews, also known as Sheriff Matthews to Miss Brandy Melissa, who we had as our last guest. And he is going to open up a brand new case, and we'll be providing the feature for it today. He spoke to me briefly about it when we first met, and even said if I would indulge him, and we now have all of the material that I believe we would deem necessary to proceed with that. So with that, Mr. Matthews, future Sheriff Matthews, the floor is all yours. Take it away.
Thank you, Robert. Today we're going to be discussing a rape case that occurred on or about October 2nd, 2021. I have spoke to the victim at length, and right now we'll just use her first name, Kelsey. Some of you may have seen the post on Facebook. She did that, and she's gotten to the point to where she wants her story told. And like I said, she reached out to me, asked me, and she's provided me with a large amount of information. A lot of audio recordings, and we'll get to that. But first things first, we're going to give you kind of the condensed version about what happened, and we're going to hit the high points.
Okay.
According to the victim, like I said, it allegedly occurred on or about October 2nd, 2021. Early morning hours. Probably around 1 a.m. Now the victim was at her lifelong or her long time friends, like 14 years, and the victim and her husband and the suspect and his wife, you know, they were. According to the victim, Kelsey, they were about as best friends as you could be. You know, they've gone on vacations together, you know, kids here, there, and yonder, and almost without fail, just almost about every weekend, they were somewhere together at this one's house, that one's house.
So they were very, very close.
Very, very close.
All right.
They were in each other's weddings, kids' events, all that kind of stuff. Now, on the night that this happened, the victim was at the suspect's residence.
All right.
Her husband, the victim's husband, was in Talladega, Alabama at a NASCAR race.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there were other people present at this party, and it was basically a little get-together with several friends. Okay. During the evening, Kelsey described herself to me as a social drinker every now and then. Now, she's a mother of, she just got 2 foster kids yesterday, so 5.
Okay.
And she's a full-time mom.
All right.
Okay. She's a good girl.
All right.
At the party, or at the gathering, the suspect, several times, according to the victim, was bringing her drinks.
Okay.
And, you know, feeding her drinks all night, shots, things of that nature. You know, she wasn't asking for them, but you know, he would continually keep the drinks flowing, if you will.
Sure.
Now, I understand she's a grown up. She could have said no. I get it, but you know, she's thinking that she's in a safe place with friends.
Yeah.
At some point during the night, the suspect kind of gets handsy with her.
Ah, okay.
And she does let someone know there. Okay, but it's kind of like, you know, he keeps, you know, touching me and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, okay, well, you know, they play it off as he's drunk.
Yeah, yeah.
He's been drinking. According to the victim, this has never happened before.
Okay.
You know, and definitely according to her, it's not a usual occurrence. There was no anything between the two of them ever at all. None.
None. Okay.
They were just friends.
All right.
You know. So at some point as the evening begins to wind down, she's gonna stay there. The suspect's wife and kids, because you know they've got their kids there. Okay, you know you got to understand this is not just an adult gathering. There's kids running around on four-wheelers. You know the Louisiana Saturday night. Okay. Not unlike any other group that would be having a gathering. Okay, nothing out of the ordinary. The suspect's wife and children go to sleep. The victim and her children are actually, she had a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old with her. They crash in the living room.
All right.
Okay, so they're in close proximity. Okay.
Okay.
So at some point, now, I got to preface it with this. For whatever reason, the victim does admit that she was intoxicated.
All right.
And that she had gotten sick earlier in the evening. Now, we'll discuss what could have been the possible root cause of that in a little while.
Sure.
But when I asked her, she says, yeah, I was, I'd been drinking, but it wasn't like I've been, more intoxicated other times in my life.
Sure.
So basically, the kids are down, she's on the couch, and she falls asleep. At some point, while she's sleeping, the attack happens. He begins touching her, which leads up to full-fledged
a full-fledged rape.
penetration. Yes. And without getting into all the nuts and bolts of that, I think everybody gets a good idea.
I don't think you have to say
the
all
mechanics of the human body between males and females.
Exactly.
When he's done, he gets up and washes his hands according to her, and then goes into his bedroom where his wife and children are. Now, during this, she is in a state of semi-consciousness. Is kind of how she explained it. And she was kind of aware of what was going on, but she says she was paralyzed with fear. Probably, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
Sure.
Am I dreaming this?
Right.
All these, and I can only imagine.
Especially in the type of environment you've already described to us.
Absolutely.
This is not some bar.
Right. And this is not some, I just met this guy at a nice house.
Exactly.
This is almost family.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term.
Sure.
And, I cannot come close to imagining what would be going through her mind.
Sure.
I know this guy, he's my best friend's husband. The emotional roller coaster would be horrible.
Yeah.
Okay. So once he is gone, she very quietly gets up and grabs her kids and loads them up in the car, and she's gone.
She's leaving.
She's left. Now, her first call is to her husband.
Okay. Who is in Alabama, if I remember what you said.
Alabama, absolutely. She calls him boo-hooing, crying, everything, and from what I gathered in the interview, she was for lack of a better term, headed towards her husband.
Okay.
Okay, even though she didn't know how to get to Talladega, Alabama, she was going to figure it out in a way. But and I can understand that from a female's point of view, where they've been through something like that, and they want that teddy bear.
You want to be comforted by the closest person to you.
Absolutely. So there was some speculation as to, and it'll be in the videos of, the audios.
Audios.
Why did you call 911 first? That happens all the time. A human being is a human being. You cannot dictate how someone is going to handle a traumatic incident and, let me call 911 first. You know, 30 years in law enforcement, I've been through all kinds of cases that I worked with in criminal investigation, and it's not uncommon for the victim to not, their first call be 911, because they've been traumatized. They may even be in a mild state of shock.
I would imagine she was in more than a mild state of shock.
So while she's driving, state police pulls her over.
Okay.
Okay. She gets out of the car boo-hooing, and she relays this immediately to the trooper.
All right.
State police does the right thing. Hey, we need to get the sheriff's office over here. We got a possible rape victim.
Okay.
Okay. Now the sheriff's office gets involved. For the life of me, during the audio tape statements that you will hear later on, they never had, and in all the meetings that the victim had with the sheriff and the DA, they never brought the detective who worked the case in.
Wow.
Why wouldn't you have the guy who knows everything about everything in there to, you know, answer some of the questions, you know, to cut through the whys and hows, who knows the nuts and bolts of what actually happened? But they didn't do that. And I have to go there with this.
Sure.
The suspect's father is a current councilman who's running for re-election.
Oh.
A parish councilman, which...
You want to re-emphasize that?
Absolutely. The suspect's father is a councilman who's running for re-election.
Ah, so now we may get a better clue why things may not have gone according to the way they might have had it not been for a person of influence. Go ahead and proceed.
And the victim's husband, Bo, was one of the first statements he made too, was it's a councilman's son. If you don't do this right, it's going to get swept under the rug. That is a quote from the victim's husband.
Okay.
Okay, and I spoke to him, and he repeated it, and I believe that he has all the right. And when he said it, he, you know, maybe he was seeing into the future.
Okay.
Because that's exactly what has happened.
All
now,
right.
I cannot fault the detective who worked the case, because I don't know exactly what he did.
All right.
Okay, but I can say this. It is very odd at the sequence of events that occurred.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll get to that. The detective comes out, he does his investigation, they draw blood, they do find DNA.
Mm-hmm.
According to the victim, at some point, now this is her telling me this, that she heard this from someone else.
Okay.
That as the detectives were speaking to the suspect,
All right.
I'm not sure of the location, and I think I want to say his mother and father and some other folks were there.
Okay.
When he's first asked about it, he denies it.
Denies it totally.
Denies it totally.
Gotcha.
And then at some point during the questioning, I want to say it's his mother.
Okay.
I could be mistaken, but it could be his mother. That you do know they're going to find, if they find DNA,
It's going to be a problem.
at that point, the suspect changes it from, I didn't do it, to it was consensual.
So we go from an outright denial to, okay, look, yeah, she and I mutually agreed to this.
Right.
Okay.
And then and I don't know, once again, because I haven't, I've never seen the sheriff's office case file on this.
Okay.
She's asked to see it. They keep giving her the runaround on, the case is technically still open, so if I show it to you, then I got to close it, which is, I've never heard of that, and here's my thing. If she is the victim of a crime, and normally you just go out full blast sexual assault victims information out there. I get that.
Yeah.
But this is a different story. She's wanting something done.
Yes.
And apparently she's not getting any traction at the sheriff's office or with the DA.
Right.
Okay, so back to the sequence of events. Normal, I don't know nothing except I've got 30 years of law enforcement. Okay, take that for what it's worth. Worked few rape cases in my career.
Okay.
Not a specialist or a subject matter expert by any means in working rapes, but I've worked a few and I've made a few arrests.
Okay.
Okay. The natural progression would be you would speak to the victim, you'd obtain any evidence as during the exam.
All right.
Bag the clothing, any blood drawn, any other body fluids collected. You go to the scene, is there anything there which should already be, you should have talked to somebody on the radio or another detective or somebody to secure the scene if you know where it is, to see if there's any trace evidence there.
Okay.
Okay? And at some point within the very early stages, you're going to want to speak to the suspect if he's available.
Okay.
Which he was. Work your case.
Okay.
Upon the culmination, if you will, of the case, and you have determined that there's probable cause, and you're going to hear that thrown around a whole lot in these audios, that there was tons of probable cause, and that's kind of sounds like the another case.
It sounds eerily familiar.
Once you determine that there's probable cause exists, that detective writes a warrant, takes it before a judge signs it, we're going to make an arrest, and then we're going to have a trial or a plea bargain at some point. If the judge refuses to sign it, then I've done my due diligence.
Sure.
Okay? I've done my due diligence. That didn't happen in this case.
Okay, that did not happen.
No, for whatever reason, the sheriff's office, and the only reason I can see this is because you can look at the other rape cases that they've done. Is that because who the father was?
Who's involved?
Exactly. So they said, what's that political hot potato? We don't, we're going to send it to the DA's office. So the DA's office is now going to do a grand jury.
All right.
That's secret, so I can't, not that I want to know anything that went into there, but in a grand jury, why wouldn't you put the victim on the stand? Especially if she's willing, and by all means, you read her statements. She is willing.
So I'm assuming from what you're saying, she was not placed.
She was not asked. She was not even notified, according to her, of when the first grand jury was going to be.
Okay.
And she doesn't know who testified or anything else. She gets a phone call from the detective, not the DA's office. Unless I could be mistaken, but it's my understanding that she was contacted by the detective. It was no true bill.
No true bill. Folks, what that means is the grand jury declined to indict.
Correct. Well, that doesn't sit well with her.
Sure.
So she starts, talking, and then, the DA, okay, well, we'll do a second grand jury.
Okay.
So the second time they bring it up for grand jury, she's not prepped. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you got to understand this. prosecutor is not going to go into a trial or anything else without sitting down with those investigators and saying, hey, this is going to be my line of questioning, and you're going to work out most of the kinks that you can prior to. Because that prosecutor doesn't want any surprises.
You don't want any Perry Mason moments.
Exactly. And he wants to know everything that the detective knows and how he's going to answer. And then they may do a little devil's advocate. Well, you know, if he hits you with this question, well, you know, what's going to be your answer? If he hits you with this question. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
Doesn't happen. The victim, you know, they exchange pleasantries out in the hallway before the second grand jury go in. Once again, no true bill.
Once a second grand jury, and still they declined to indict. But so we've now got 2 grand juries.
You've got 2 grand juries, 2 no true bills. Now she's still pushing. So for the likes of me, I don't know why. But now they decide, okay, well, let's try to write a warrant. And at this point, that detective would be remiss
not to put in that we've gone before a grand jury.
There's been 2 grand juries and they both come back no true bill.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
is it a case of things being done backwards?
Yeah, just slightly. And once again, I can't fault the detective because he's not driving this.
No,
train.
I understand that.
He's just doing his job. Once the sheriff and the DA, they get their fingers into it, that's how things get screwed up. And that's how things happen to where now all of a sudden you don't have any justice. So that's where we've gotten so far. And I'll leave you with this. And
we're gonna have, there's gonna be a multi-part segment, folks, so don't think we're done.
Correct.
But it's just like with Fred Court, it was too much to try to bite off all in one. So when he says, I'm leaving with this, we're bidding you a pleasant good night, as Lawrence Welk used to do when, you know, see you next time. So you go ahead and he's wrapping up this one. Go ahead.
There's about 3.5 hours of audio that the victim has given us.
Yes.
Now, what you're going to hear at the end of this is there's going to be a segment. The first one that you're going to hear is when apparently drugs were found in the victim's system. And you're going to hear her find out about it for the first time. Okay? So once again, pay close attention when you hear that. Okay? And there seems to be some discord between the sheriff and the DA about that.
Yes.
Okay? Once again, that is a point that needs to be investigated. Where did it come from? Right,
the discord.
Secondly, you're going to hear a segment where the victim is basically pretty much saying, you know, I don't feel that justice has been done, which is her right.
Yeah.
And she says, maybe we need some more media coverage on this.
And
you're going to hear Bobby Weber blow a gasket.
He blows a gasket, folks.
And he goes off on her, and there, in my opinion, is some victim shaming that goes on.
Wow.
But that's not my words. You listen to the video, and you make the decision for yourself.
Correct. And that's going to be posted immediately at this point in this video. And I'm going to also post them separately. So that for those who don't have the patience, in case, put a lettering saying these are the videos that are at the end, the audios that are at the end of the video. I hope everybody will take the time to watch this video, because otherwise you may not, you need the background. So I hope you've looked at the video. We're going to break away right now and post those 2 audios. We'll be right back.
I'm assuming it does. You have like 3 drugs in your system.
She's a hardcore.
Man, I don't remember what it was, but it was.
Please tell me. Is it something?
Did they drug her?
Yeah.
Did they drug her?
Yeah.
Why are they just hearing
Okay.
about this?
Yeah, please tell me.
I don't know, but I think it was a.
Even better news.
That's great news.
Yeah, you think so?
If they did that to her,
Who did that?
whoever, we don't know.
One doctor report like that. It says alcohol.
She got a prescription after this whole deal to deal with life.
This is the only one I got. I thought it was something.
I don't know, y'all might have hit something. Let's dig into that some more.
Yeah, so I thought that was
You're the patient. Yeah, I'd like to see
a
that.
red flag when it was
I'm
seen
sorry.
something.
I'm just trying to figure out.
A little bit from Bo. I know you may be the victim here, okay, and I appreciate that. That's one reason you're here again, and I love that kind of stuff because that's how you make shit happen. But you gotta give a little bit too.
She's just frustrated.
Yes, it can be frustrated, but it can be frustrated on both sides.
I understand.
On both sides. But we the one we keep giving. It's like the Energizer Bunny here. It's keep giving and don't want to stop. And if you can, and that's what you say. Go to Miss Karen Charla, 2 grand juries, a judge. Come see the file. Come on, Karen, come see it. Come on, Chris, come see the file. 2 grand juries, a judge. Nobody believes her. That's not the way you want to go. That's not the way I want to go. But that's the way we will go. So I was very pleased to hear that you just heard me say, man, Ricky wants to let the Attorney General take a look at it, and you foo-foo that like a shit.
That's not how I meant it.
Well, that's how you said it.
Aggravated. She's
I just don't want to make
very
up this issue
emotional.
that he'll do anything.
No, it's fine.
All I can do is ask.
Well,
All right, Mr. Matthews, we have now integrated the 2 audios into that. And you can make any concluding remarks that you'd like to make as we go ahead and draw this one to a close. And we're going to look forward to having you back for segment 2 of this feature. And thank you so much for segment 1. You're never a dull moment. So whatever you'd like to wrap up.
2 things I want to leave you with, Robert.
All right.
First things first. It was very far into this, before, and I understand they had to send it to the lab, and once it finally came back, the way the sheriff almost accuses her of using drugs. Okay. You've got to listen to that for yourself, and you've got to make that own decision. Your own decision on that. I know her, and that ain't her.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's no way you can make me believe that in a million years. Secondly, when they want to bring the media in, and the way Bobby Weber talks to her,
Yes.
a victim. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of Ascension Parish, is that the way that you would expect a sheriff or law enforcement officer under his command to talk to your daughter, who's been involved in who's been the victim of sexual trauma? Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. That's the man. Everybody below him, that's who they're looking to for leadership. That's the kind of leadership he's providing. I have no words for that.
And I can understand that. And he certainly had a very short fuse, especially for someone who is alleging she's the victim of a rape. The audio speaks for itself. There's no need for me to add anymore.
Absolutely.
So folks, I hope that this has intrigued you. Mr. Matthews will be back in short order to continue on this because, as he said, it was over 3 hours of audio that we've been provided with, and I think there are going to be some more interesting things to be revealed before we're done with this one. Thank you so much, Mr. Matthews, and as always, you have that standing invitation. It looks like you're making more than adequate use of it, so we'll see you again.
Thank you so much, Robert.
Real soon. All right.